Amazing. We've gone from the first satellite to this in only a little over 10 years, Isaac said, looking like a balding Jewish leprechaun as he grinned and rubbed his hands. We had the incentive once they proved Mars had an oxygen atmosphere back in '47, Bob replied. That's why we had von Braun hard at work from the day we caught him, and the Ruskies were slave-driving their krauts, too. Without that to push us, we might still be waiting for the first manned mission to orbit, or even the first satellite. Then, softly, but we do have the motive. A whole world. 2, his red-headed wife said sharply. We're not going to let the Reds have Venus all of themselves, even if they did get the first probe there. What's really bloody amazing is that we're going to watch it on TV, in color, worldwide no less, another writer said, in excruciatingly British tones, which is like Ferdinand and Isabella watching Columbus land in a newsreel at the cinema. Hell, Arthur, you predicted it 15 years ago, Powell replied, and they all chuckled. Or at least you predicted transmission satellites for TV. Prediction is becoming less and less attractive with actual reports from other planets expected daily. I think I'll stick to writing historicals and time travel from now on and leave the solar system alone, one tall, distinguished-looking man with a goatee quipped. You lie, Spriggy, Catherine said crisply. You won't be able to resist it. Then all sound died. Even breathing seemed hushed. The little crackle as someone sucked on a cigarette and added to the blue haze of smoke under the ceiling sounded loud. Walter Cronkite was pontificating on the screen. For once, his solemnly pretentious tones matched the occasion, probably for the first time since D-Day. Werner von Braun was beside him, looking like a cat with little yellow feathers stuck to his lips. Well, a man might when the U.S. government was giving him 10% of its budget to play with on a lifetime basis. It might be 20% after this, or more. Fighting over Berlin is starting to look a lot less important, to both sides. Behind him, a model of the Mars Viking lander dropped down a hypothetical trajectory and settled on long, spidery legs. Half the fans at this convention were wearing Viking helmets with horns. Powell grumbled that the horns weren't historical. A lot of them had added little propellers on top, too. Bob began, You know, I had this idea for another Mars book a couple of years ago about an orphan adopted by Martians, but then the preliminary orbital telescope reports came in, and I didn't dare... Now, someone else said. Everyone shut up! The color screen flickered, showed snow. A groan started, then cut off abruptly as the picture cleared save for a few raster lines. Smoke faded away, blown by a stiff wind. Someone swore softly. The ground in front of the lander was a plain, covered in low-growing reddish-green plants. Mars, commie-colored cabbage planet, someone said. That brought a brief, nervous chuckle. The ground cover did look a little like splayed-open cabbages with thick, waxy, reddish-green leaves. Here and there was a reddish-gray shrub covered in white flowers. Neither seemed to want to burn. The circular fire set by the rockets died quickly. The vegetation rippled in the wind, and there was a haze like dust on a horizon that shaded up to a sky that was pink as much as blue. Low, rocky hills showed in the distance. Between the lander and them was... It's a canal! If only Edgar could be here! Hell with Burroughs, if only Lowell... Shut up! It was a canal. About 15 yards wide, sweeping from left to right, and then turning so that it dwindled out of sight like a perspective drawing, curving to follow the contour of the land, for all the world like one in California or Arizona, except that it was covered in an arched roof of some transparent stuff, so clear it was barely visible at all. The banks were reddish, man-high stone or concrete, sloping away from the interior and covered in abstract figures, something like hieroglyphics, ancient and crumbling and faded. A low black shape like a flattened turtle that must be the size of a Volkswagen crawled over the crystal roof without visible means of support, unless there was something like a snail's foot beneath the carapace. Guess that settles the question of whether those structures we saw from orbit were the product of intelligence or not, Isaac said dryly. That turtle